Hi, my name is Palmo Tenzin. I'm here today with Mr. David Lang to discuss his recent Strategic Insights paper on the trilateral relationship between Australia, Japan and India. Thanks for joining us, Dave.
Thanks, Palmo.
So what's happening between these three countries today and what's the background of their relationship?
Well, senior foreign affairs officials from Japan, Australia and India met in New Delhi last month to discuss a range of regional security matters, and maritime security really topped the agenda. And there was a focus on the possibility of joint exercises between the three. The three countries aren't strangers to each other. They've last cooperated in 2008 on the quadrilateral security dialogue with the United States, which was actually scuppered by the Rudd government when they came to power in 2008 for fear of China's reaction. So that the three have now come back together to talk about regional security issues really speaks to a shared understanding of the challenges that we're facing in the Asia-Pacific today.
So what's changed in the strategic environment that spurred this grouping?
So first and foremost, China and its actions. That's one of the main things that has changed in the region. Compared to 2008, China's pursuing a much more assertive campaign at the moment. We see that in the East China Sea and more recently in the South China Sea. No longer do we hear of the peaceful rise of China. That's the rhetoric that we heard under Hu Jintao, but under Xi Jinping, Beijing is pursuing a much more muscular foreign policy. The second thing that's changed is the leadership in the three countries. Japan, India and Australia are all led by leaders now that are largely cut from similar cloth, and they're all looking to do more to shore up regional security.
So what I find most interesting about your paper is your call for Australia to lean forward to initiate and develop this trilateral relationship. Why is this important?
Well, there are a number of reasons why Australia is well positioned to deepen the trilateral relationship. First and foremost, we're really looking for more opportunities to do more for the regional security environment. The expectations of our chief security partner, the US, have really increased as they've been drawn to their other global responsibilities beyond the Asia-Pacific. And so whatever we can do to shoulder the burden is certainly something that we're looking to do. Secondly, Canberra's rhetoric on Beijing has hardened considerably over the last few years. Previous Australian governments have tended to speak in broad terms or not at all when it came to China's actions. But under Tony Abbott's government, we're seeing a much firmer line. You can look back to Julie Bishop's intervention in November 2013, China's declaration of the Air Defence Identification Zone in the East China Sea, through to more recent interventions from the Department of Defence Secretary Dennis Richardson at the RUSI event in Sydney, to the Defence Minister at the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore. And more recently, Tony Abbott was also in Singapore where he offered his firmest intervention yet. So this trilateral really is an opportunity for the three countries to get together, but for Australia really, the benefit is that we get to express our firmer line in a new format, in a new forum, but with like-minded partners.
So if we were to see a deepening of this trilateral relationship, what would it look like?
Well, I've proposed in my paper that it could be developed across two distinct tracks. On one side, you've got the diplomatic and the dialogue activities. On the other side, the military-to-military contacts. Currently, the trilateral is occurring between senior officials from the three countries. So that means secretary-level representation. Hierarchy is really important in the Asia-Pacific. So if this trilateral is really to have legs, it needs buy-in from senior Australian leaders. So one thing I've proposed is that the defence ministers of the three countries can get together in a forum to discuss issues of mutual concern. The foreign ministers can do a similar thing, Julie Bishop convening with her Indian and Japanese partners to answer similar questions and look for opportunities to collaborate. The heads of state of the three nations currently maintain bilateral consultations, which should certainly be sustained. They're only quite new in the case of India and Australia, but they should certainly also look for opportunities for collaboration on the sidelines of multilateral forums, of which all three are a part. I'm thinking things like the East Asia Summit, the ASEAN Regional Forum and the G20. Beyond those diplomatic activities, you can look to military cooperation. And for three strategically located maritime democracies, the Maritime Commons is going to be key. What is clear is that Japan and Australia have overlapping maritime interests, as do India and Australia. What is not so clear is where the maritime interests of Japan and India overlap. So I've proposed that the three countries should get together to focus on maritime cooperation, whereby they can share operational intelligence, develop situational awareness, and that could be through something like anti-submarine warfare activities that really develops a theatre-wide operating picture.
You mentioned in the military space, the cooperation is largely concentrated on the maritime field. I was wondering, are there any other areas where the three countries could cooperate?
Well, the maritime space is certainly a focus for three maritime democracies, but there's scope for other sort of cooperation. All three countries have growing interest in cyber activities, and so cooperation in cyber defence is certainly an area where they should pursue deepening cooperation.
At the beginning of the conversation, you mentioned the three countries previously cooperated under the quadrilateral relationship with the US. Why not bypass this trilateral relationship that you propose and go straight to the quadrilateral relationship?
So the trilateral with Australia, Japan and India is just the latest sign in the region that countries are seeking solace and safety in numbers. They're really diversifying their security relationship in what is a warming regional security environment. The trilateral has a number of benefits, and one of which is that it doesn't involve the US. As soon as the US is involved, there are sensitivities in Beijing. It's seen as much more of a threat to China, so that's an inherent strength of this trilateral. The quadrilateral has remained up for discussion over recent years. Modi raised it in his consultations with Obama back in January and with Tony Abbott in November last year. And this is all in the background to Prime Minister Abe's op-ed, where he wrote about Asia's democratic security diamond for Project Syndicate soon after he returned to power in Japan at the end of 2012. So while the regional security environment might not call for the quadrilateral just now, deepening the trilateral engagement between the three countries certainly provides a sound foundation upon which the Quad could be reconvened at a later date.
Dave Lang, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Talmo.